Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We'd like to call the meeting to order, our special meeting, and we'd like to start with the pledge. Okay, just a quick reminder, this is a special meeting. This is for us as the board to actually review a project and discuss it amongst ourselves, give and take with the engineer and the architect. This is not a public forum. This is a meeting basically for the board's benefit. All right, so sometimes you may feel like you want to ask a question about it. That is not the opportunity to do that at this time, okay? Reserve that for the regular meeting. Thank you. We should do roll call.
Sorry. Councilwoman Albrecht.
Here.
Councilman Mazzella.
Here.
Councilman O'Hanlon.
Here.
Councilman Reifenberg.
Here.
Supervisor Delvecchio.
Here.
All present.
Thank you. Okay, and without any further ado, our special meeting has begun. I'm going to turn it over to CPL's one and only Mr. Greg Bollner.
Well, thank you. I got a mic here, so Greg Bollner with CPL, and I've also got with me Jonathan Duraco with CPL. He's the project architect. Maria Mazurik, who is also an architect in our office, is also continuing to work on this project. Jonathan's local, Maria's in Buffalo. So, but anyway, so we're here tonight to talk about the plans that we have gotten together for the town hall building. I'm going to introduce Jonathan here, let him kind of get started, and I will pass out the packages we've got for everyone. And this is the same thing that we had delivered to the town back on January 31st.
Right.
And I think the town had distributed that to everyone on the board. But I just wanted to share it in case.
Good evening, I'm Jonathan Duraco. I'm project manager from CPL. Tonight we're going to be discussing the new Pleasant Valley Town Hall. So we had submitted a package at the SD level a couple weeks ago. Part of our SD package included 4 plans, elevations, and a narrative that described the mechanical, electrical, plumbing, and site civil requirements for doing the new town hall project. So I'm going to start on the lower level. The way the site works is that you access the building on the lower level from the front and the upper level from the rear. And the way we are presenting the layout of the building is that on the lower level, we're going to have the courtroom location and the new meeting hall location. The judges' quarters are also on this level, and the public counter for paying fees and whatnot related to the courtroom is also on this level. Part of the design is also we're proposing a new internal stair and elevator to access both levels of the building. And on the second level, how do I just hit the up arrow?
Jonathan, before you go to the next level, I just wanted to point out to the board some of the changes that has happened since we had previously presented to the board, is the mechanical space behind the town hall area, or the meeting hall. So that would be the mechanical space for the water supply, as well as any other mechanicals that need to be done. This also offers the opportunity to provide structural support underneath the proposed safe on the second floor. The other thing that we're showing here is the dotted line down the middle of the building is a firewall. So that would provide your fire separation to avoid the requirement for a sprinkler system. So we would have a firewall down the center of the building, and then we would also have fire separation between the first floor and the second floor. Other than that, most of this is the same as what the board's seen before, just cleaned up a little bit, because I think previously we just kind of sketched over the existing plans. So this is just simply cleaned up a little bit to show those spaces.
So this is the upper level of the building. The main entrances will be off the rear of the building with parking up here. We'll have ADA parking up here as well as on the first floor. This is going to house all the town hall different departments. Can't really see.
And then a couple of minor items here. We'd moved the vault to the northeast corner of the building so that it would be above the mechanical room to provide the opportunity for additional structural support underneath that structure. We had also identified in the northwest corner future office. I think that would also be available for, not for a meeting room, but for a training room, if you wanted to have a training room. Otherwise, you get into some requirements, code requirements for floor weight. The storage area is above the court offices, so again, there's the opportunity to provide structural support in the walls in the court offices for that area. And then also that middle space there is also future office. So that pretty much that whole northwest corner offers opportunity for future office space when identified.
So I'll just do a quick walkthrough and I'll use the mouse to kind of guide through the building up here. So as you come in, you'll have the town clerk's office over here. And as you make your way down, the building department will be located here, with the various building department desks and offices within. Then coming further down, we have the assessor located here. Kitchen break area located here in the middle. The bathrooms are located here in the same location where they currently are. And as you come through this dividing wall here, we have the maintenance staff room here, the council workroom located here, the bookkeeper's office is located here, we have an internal meeting room located here, we have the supervisor secretary office located here, and the supervisor's office located here. And Greg had already explained about the future office area here, and then the storage area that's located here. How do I zoom out on it? Got it. So on the outside of the building, we have presented two different scenarios. So the first one we looked at was keeping the existing overhang that's located in the front of the building and adding a new entrance canopy for what would be the new entrance on the ground level. We're keeping the two dormers that are located on the roof now, keeping the clock tower that's on the roof now, adding new siding to the clock tower, and new roofing around the whole building. We're proposing a metal roof on the side of the buildings. We're going to keep all the existing brick, and then we're going to reside in the gable ends. And on the rear of the building, we are adding two entrance canopies for the two entrances located on the rear. The other alternative that we presented is that we would remove the overhang that goes across the whole perimeter of the front of the building. We'd have a larger entrance canopy. We would relocate the clock tower to the entrance canopy, and then we would fill in this area with some type of a banding material. Right now, we're playing with maybe ideas of stucco or maybe another type of block or brick that would be different from what's existing on the building. On the back, we're proposing the same entrance canopies. Is there anything else you want to add? Do you want to add anything else?
Well, so at this point, just looking to see what the opinion of the town board is with regards to which canopy is the preference for going forward, or which facade. Again, the big difference is the first one basically maintains that existing porch overhang, where the second one removes that porch overhang, fills in the doors. The windows to the right would be an opaque type window, and then we also anticipated that regardless of what you would do is, or with whichever facade you look at, is to provide like planter boxes or something in front of those windows just to simply keep people from walking up to the window and banging on the window or whatever. But it would be, so it would let in daylight, but it wouldn't allow people to see in to the courtroom from the outside. I don't know if the board has an opinion on either one.
I just have two quick questions. So this one is showing the overhang, and the water would come off the main roof and onto the second part, and then the water disbursement would be towards the cistern side, which is the west side of the building, correct? Is that the plan for this?
All of the stormwater off of the roof actually collects into catch basins and then discharges off the site. It doesn't go to the cistern.
Oh, it doesn't, okay.
No. Any of the stormwater collected in the parking lot.
So it's
Right now, there's gutters that come across the front and then go over to the catch basins in the parking lot.
Okay. And the other piece, you have this one where the clock tower remains on the top. Now, I've seen the inside and how to get to that, and that kind of is difficult. Would it be advantageous to bring that clock tower down to a more reasonable piece? Is that why we're doing the second one?
Okay. Well, part of the reason, if you go to the second one, the reason why we did that is because this entrance centers over the main entrance to the courtroom meeting room, but it's off-center to the building. So if you left the clock tower up there, it would be extremely obvious that it's off-center. With the clock tower removed and the two gables removed, it's not immediate. It doesn't take away from the symmetry of the building to have that, because then the overhang area or the porch area, if you want to call it, is expanded so that it covers both the doorway to the left, which would be to the court, the doorway to the right, which I think is a secondary exit from the meeting room, and then the main entrance in the middle. So it just simply pulls the focus to that main entrance, where if you go back to the other one, Jonathan, you can see that the main entrance is off to the right of the canopy area. So it's really just a matter of maintaining that symmetry, that if you put the entry canopy off-center, you would want to bring that clock tower so that otherwise I think it would look odd. But yes, and it would also be more, I mean, it's not a major change to move that clock tower. I think that clock tower is not in very good condition. I don't believe there's even really a clock in it anymore.
Certainly not telling time.
Okay. But yeah, it would allow the town to maintain that architectural feel of the building, kind of a farm type of structure. But it doesn't have to have a clock tower. We just thought that was something that the town probably would want to keep, having that architectural feature.
Just a couple of questions about the difference between the two. The first one is there a significant cost difference between the two options? And then in the second option where you take away the overhang on the entire building, is the plan to remove the sidewalks outside of the new peak if we got rid of the overhang? Because then we would just have sidewalks that really go nowhere. And then is there a thought process behind using a metal roof compared to shingles and the cost difference between the two?
We will be looking at that as I guess I hadn't really shared this with the board as a board, but we did engage a contractor this past week to do a construction cost estimate. We wanted to get a contractor's input on that because numbers in the industry right now are very volatile. So we wanted to get some input from a contractor on those numbers. And I don't know if we specifically, Jonathan, asked them to price both facades, or we just asked them to price the second one. The second one would be the more costly. Where you're removing the facade along, or the porch along the front and putting in the banding, the canopy overhang is larger. That would be the more cost. That would be the higher cost facade.
We're also removing the dormers off the roof on this one, so there'll be roof patching involved with that as well.
So that's clearly the more expensive option. That's what we were going to get the contractor to price out to see what that is. The other option really is fairly minor because you're maintaining the roof, you're building a small canopy area, and you're basically leaving the dormers and the clock where they are. The rationale of going to the standing seam metal roof versus the asphalt shingle roof, it has a longer life to it, and it is a much more attractive appearance for the building itself. But it could go back as architectural, asphalt shingle roof based on cost. We kind of looked at it to a certain extent as put the numbers out there, and then that roof might be the place where you cut costs. So get the number, see where it is, and then when you need to trim the budget, you have some places where you can trim the budget. And some of the things that we identified, and we'll be kind of laying out a little bit more in detail, is the parking lot's not in that bad a shape. We'll price it out as what it would be to overlay the parking lot and completely restripe. But again, that might be something that if costs and budgets start to become stressed, then those are things that you can pull out of the budget and just simply seal it, stripe it, and continue, because it's not in bad shape. The roof definitely needs to be replaced, but whether or not that goes back as asphalt shingle. Jonathan, I think you'd said standing metal seam roof is about twice, or?
No, it's probably closer 3 to 4 times the cost,
Okay.
but the lifespan could be at least double, if not more. If it's maintained well, you could get up to about 50 years on it.
Yeah, the metal roof. So the metal roof is definitely more costly. And that's something that, again, it's an architectural feature that I think we thought was more appealing, but it's definitely a cost item.
Well, I understand you doing that on the main part of the roof. I think that that overhang that you have is completely useless. All it adds is a lot of extra money to the project, as far as I can tell. We should just go without it, make it a little wider and have that one, and have that instead. Now, the other thing I have a question about are the windows.
Mary, I guess I'm not following. So you're saying remove the
Yes.
porch across the front?
Okay.
Yes, that one is the one, not that one. That's gonna be a lot of extra added
Maintenance.
maintenance and cost to begin with, because you gotta hold it up, you gotta have columns, you gotta have all this stuff, plus the cost of the extra roofing. I would much rather see us go the other way and put the clock tower down further. I do think the clock tower has a kind of a neat look to it. The question I have also are these windows on the right-hand side, are they gonna be like special windows that,
You're talking about the right-hand side of the front facade.
right, because, you know, why do we have windows going all the way down? Like,
I think that's what they are now.
So
No, I guess, well, go ahead.
right now, there's storefront entrances.
Yeah.
Each one was split up between a different business. The easiest way we saw to infill it was to just put it as windows rather than construct it and have to brick it in or whatever other material. So it's closing the existing opening that's currently there.
well, that's the room where we all meet,
Right.
right? You know, I don't want to be overly, like, you know, sensitive to things happening, but, you know, I do watch the news, and I'm not really thrilled with those two big windows in the front like that,
Okay.
Okay.
unless there's some kind of bulletproof glass, which I'm sure is going to be like out of this world.
Yes.
Yes.
But everybody's back would be to it. Huh? No, I'm serious.
No, I'm only kidding.
You know.
Well, no, we did
I don't like
kinda-
that feeling.
We did have that discussion internally, but again, we're putting that out there. That's why we're here, is to get the feedback from the board.
Right.
You know, because that's what I guess I was trying to say is, regardless of which way we'd go, they would at least be opaque. In other words, you wouldn't be able to see through the windows. They would allow in light, but you definitely wouldn't want people to be able to see through the windows to see the people in the crowd.
Wow.
They'd be frosted.
Yeah, that only takes care of part of the problem.
Correct. I'm not saying that it would take care of the problem that you're mentioning.
Right.
But we can always remove it. Again, I think what Jonathan was saying, because they're an existing storefront, it was perceived as the most cost-effective way to infill that without necessarily detracting from the look of the building.
Right.
You have those storefronts the way they are. If you fill them in, then you're looking at having to fill them in with the material that is not necessarily going to match. But you could fill them in with a metal, you know, like a metal panel or something. I'm gonna let the architect talk to that, but,
So also in the back, you have to be ADA compliant for those back doors, correct?
Correct.
Well, you know, they're pretty high up. Are we gonna need a tow rope for people to get into the door?
you would
So
have to have a ramp.
yeah, we would have to have a
No, I
ramp
mean,
built
that's what
into
I
the
mean.
sidewalk.
It's, you know, I mean, it's gotta be easy for the people to get into. We're on a flat surface here. And, you know, we have a lot of elderly people that come in here. And we have to be conscious of that for the future.
Correct. So we would have 88 parking spaces up there, and as part of the code, you're only allowed so much of a slope from that parking space to get inside the building. So we would rework that in the sidewalk / ramp getting up to the entrance, so it would be provided in our design. We just don't have a site plan at this point that actually shows what the ramp would look like.
So then you would also do something from the back parking lot to the sidewalk that would also be easy for them to get up and down.
Correct. An option if we had multiple spots is we can drop the curb like 5 spots in a row or so, and then any of those spots would easily be able to wheel into the sidewalk, and then you would have a normal, like, curb cut ramp sidewalk to get up onto the sidewalk, and then once you got to the door, you'd have the separate ramp that would bring you up into the building.
Okay, but it wouldn't be too steep.
No.
And the most likely approach is you just have a standard handicap ramp from the pavement to get you to the curb level. And
Okay.
then you would have, if it's necessary, I don't know the exact elevation, but you would have steps that would go straight into the door on the left, and then have a serpentine ramp to the right. So you wouldn't try to ramp from the parking lot straight towards the building. You would have the sidewalk walk straight towards the building, have one or two steps up at whatever's necessary to get into the building. But then next to those steps, you would have a small ramp that would bypass those steps. So somebody that's coming in the building would walk straight. Somebody that needs a handicap ramp would go 5 feet to the left or 6 feet to the left and 6 feet back to the right.
So that there
Right
wouldn't be
and
any
left.
step to get into the building.
There would be steps for people that are not handicapped to get into the building.
No, I mean the handicapped
And
one.
handicapped, they would have no steps.
No step, okay,
They would go,
good.
basically go around the steps.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Probably wouldn't be both doors, because I think the public entrance is the door on the left. The other entrance would either be like the back door here where it's employees only, but it wouldn't, both doors would not be required to be handicap accessible because they're not both intended for the public.
It would be this
Okay.
door.
Primary means of egress. Yeah,
Okay.
and then we add.
So my vote would be for without the front overhang on the building.
Okay.
Okay.
With the, with all the offices basically being on the second floor, I was at the Town of LaGrange Town Hall today, and you're very familiar with it. So they have the entrance on the back and they have the entrance on the front, but you walk in kind of in the middle of the building and you can go up or down. I've never been there except for today, and my tendency was just to pull out front and to go in the front doors and whatnot. So with everything being on the second floor, and with us building a huge entryway on the front and kind of really small entryways on the back, what's the plan to, are we locking the front door, or what's the plan to get people up around that building and realize that there's somebody that's never been to Town Hall before?
Yes, you would definitely need to have signage for vehicular signage to direct people around to the back. Generally speaking, and then yes, the downstairs would be locked. You would only have, so the idea would be, is the main entry door in the center would be locked. The door to the left would be open, that would only allow people to come in to pay their tickets, and then that, or whatever court, and then the door to the right of that entry on the left would be locked. So you wouldn't allow people access to the building. They would only be able to come in, go to the public counter, and that's it. And then anybody else would be directed to the back of the building. There's plenty of parking in the back of the building for the amount of traffic that you get during the day for building permits, town clerk.
About the same as the frontages we have here.
Right, right.
Might be a little more.
Another example would be the town of Poughkeepsie Town Hall. It operates that way, where like the building department and some other departments, you go around the building and you park in the back, and it's the same where it's a split level. And there's a parking lot in the front as well.
So you do that with signage, and the idea is that no one would need to be downstairs other than to go see the court clerk. I mean, the court clerk.
Correct.
And then all the rest of the doors would be locked, and with a sign on them that would just simply say, go around to the back of the building for town hall offices. Because you wouldn't want people walking through that building, because it would pretty much be unoccupied and unsecure.
Right, you enter into where you're supposed to go for what your needs are,
Right.
and that's it.
Can we have a conversation about the future offices and the storage record section on the second floor? That leaves a lot of room for expansion, and I'm not saying that we don't need it, but this is to scale, correct? Correct?
Correct.
So that section of the building is exactly the same size section as the meeting room downstairs where we would meet, not the court, but us. Can't that be like a senior rec area? We're needing room for our seniors to meet, right? Because they're not gonna go from our meeting room downstairs on the first floor all the way up to the kitchen on the second floor when they do their senior Fridays. So that would be a good section, I think, to put that, and you just flip-flop the bookkeeper and the kitchen room.
You need to be a little, what we need to make sure that we pay attention to is that area is above the courtroom.
Yep.
And without having to go to significant expense to reinforce the floor, if we make that a meeting room, then the floor load increases. If you make it a training room, it doesn't. Because it's just the definition of the room. Because the definition of the room and the building code defines what the floor load has to be. Or actually, take it back. Definition of the room defines capacity. Capacity defines floor load. And so that's why, if it's a meeting room, then the capacity is a higher capacity than if it's a training room. And if you're talking about seniors exercising, it's basically a training room. And yes, they could use that for that. I mean, it's.
So where were you thinking about the seniors going on Fridays?
Well, I don't think that was on his radar. He's not a program director, he's a.
No, I know that, but.
It wasn't part of the programming that we had looked at.
Yeah, that's up to us.
So what would it take to reinforce that?
Well, we can have that conversation, because it may not take anything. It just, when we're talking about a meeting room, we're talking about getting 80 people in there. But if you're talking about 20 seniors getting together, it's a training room.
I was gonna say, how big is your senior Fridays?
What's happening is, Lisa's actually getting more seniors each week, so this room here.
Is full.
It's always at capacity.
I
It
got you.
is, I'm here most of the time.
Yeah, I mean, you need a decent room for the
All
seniors.
right, but we could also use the room downstairs, the big room, the big meeting.
Well, can I propose something? So this storage records room, right?
Yeah,
I think you said before it's located to be able to store stuff because it's above.
because
some
it also
offices.
has a high load capacity.
It has a
for-
high load capacity. So
As a storage room.
I'm looking at a lot of the floor plan here. We have, do you know how many square foot this building department storage records room is? Just that room itself?
I don't have those specific.
Maybe like 800? I mean, it's fairly large.
It's fairly large.
Yeah, so let's say that's about, let's just say
Probably, yeah.
700 to,
1,000.
800 to 1,000 square feet. I mean, that's a large room. And then we also have the clerk's office. They have a work and file section. The assessor's office is rather large. In the world that we're moving towards, where everything's becoming digital, I mean, for me, it doesn't really make sense that we have a storage and records room that's, now we're talking maybe 2,000 square feet. If that room there is 800 to 1,000, could we potentially swap, if we're going to think about doing a senior center where maybe we offer more than just Friday programming, maybe we can expand it, because one of the problems is we can only do it Fridays because this room is being used for other stuff. So if we have all this extra space, is it much to just swap this around and you maybe even take out that one wall between the future office and the storage and records and just make that a community room?
Well, one of the things, Jonathan, if you go to the left there a little bit, is you could take the future office and you could move the council workroom over there. You could move the bookkeeper also gets into, because of the definition of a bookkeeper, they get into storage too. But you could move some of those offices over there, and then you could take that bookkeeper, council workspace, maintenance staff, and even, well, maybe not the kitchen, because that's nice center located, and you could take those three rooms and make that a a meeting room for seniors, which is basically about the same square footage.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, this is just my opinion, I'm not speaking on
Oh, I'm sorry.
all five of us, but the council workroom, personally, I think it's a waste of space.
It's a
for-
complete waste of space.
The five
Well-
of us, the four of us can't even be in there at the same time,
No.
so, we have a
Well,
conference
you
room.
wouldn't be in there at the same, they're like, they would be like cubbies, you know, where you go to do, you sign the vouchers and.
It's an 800 square foot cubby room.
I get-
Either way, I can go use the conference room, we have so
Right.
much room here.
There's so much room.
If
I
it's
don't
to
think we need-
expand the seniors program or activities or whatnot, I'd personally like to reconfigure this to, I would be more happy with this if we were using more of this space that could benefit the residents than just have future potential. That's my opinion. If we can
The
rearrange-
issue with the meeting, with the kitchen, is it's so far away from where the seniors are that you're gonna have people walking down that hall, making all kinds of disturbances to get to the kitchen.
Right. You could move the kitchen to where the bookkeeper space is.
Right.
And then you could make the future office and the storage room the senior space. That's what I really meant to say. And then move the storage room to where the council, maintenance, and kitchen are.
Yeah,
Work that way too, yeah?
right.
So then you could
Right.
make that storage, and then that's probably enough room to have storage and also the bookkeeper. So the bookkeeper and storage could move to that space where it's kitchen, break room, maintenance, and then the storage and future office, because that is over the space that's got walls underneath it, that could be a large meeting room, and then you could move.
Oh, okay.
You know, depending upon, I mean, if you eliminate the council room, and, you know, that's pretty big room for maintenance staff as well. If you eliminate those two rooms, you still pretty much still have the future office in the top right-hand corner, top left-hand corner.
I like that better.
That works.
Well, we also have the option of not parting with this building and turning it into a full-time senior center.
But we can definitely, if that's the vote of the board, I'd just like to make sure we're all on the same page, that we'll go ahead and modify the future office and the storage to be a large meeting room, move the kitchen to where the bookkeeper space is, and then basically eliminate the council workroom and the maintenance staff, move the bookkeeper down where the kitchen is, and have those other two rooms as they could be, still be future, I'm sorry, then that would be storage. And then you'd still have the future office in the top left corner. So it'd be future office, large meeting room, and then kitchen, and then the next two rooms would be storage, and then the next room would be the bookkeeper, or vice versa. The bookkeeper and the storage would be mixed in there.
What I thought what you said the first time was, say we remove the council person workroom, right? And then you just slide all those boxes down, right? But just put the kitchen closest to that section and just extend that seniors area to make it rectangle.
Bring it all the way over
Yeah,
and move, get rid of this,
yeah,
put the bookkeeper here,
yeah,
the break over where the.
yeah, right where the council room is. Yeah, yeah, and then everything else becomes that little senior corner. I don't know.
You know how big that would be in comparison to this room?
It would probably be close to the same size of this room. Because the room, how deep is the building, I can't remember,
I'm not sure the whole
it's
total.
60. Yeah, we can.
I mean, in all reality, too, you could get rid of this wall.
Yes.
Make this the room here, which would easily give you more room than this.
Well, that's
Right.
what I'm thinking, a little more room than this.
Yeah.
We have room for expansion.
And then we could set the
Right.
tables up and everything, and we can offer a program to seniors.
Well, no, and that's what I was thinking, is that the future office and the storage room would become one big room.
Yeah.
And then I thought that the bookkeeper room would become the kitchen. kitchen over to there.
Makes
And
sense.
then you could have storage be the next two rooms, and the bookkeeping be where the kitchen is.
That works.
That works, as long as the size works, yes.
Yep.
I'm over.
I think it's at
Plus,
least,
you'll have more room, square footage wise, because you wouldn't have us sharing, you share this room with the town council.
Right.
Like, it's just
Stuff.
room for you.
All our apparatus is in here.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
just one whole big room.
yeah.
Just a quick, what would be the possibility of that, like up there? Of this, I mean, of possibly having this as one of those, what do you call it? Those-
Partition walls.
Yeah, if we were to go, if it were needed.
To have that whole space, then you would have to
Reinforce it.
you'd have significant reinforcing for the courtroom below. Because the courtroom is intended to try to be one big open space, is the reason why you get into that.
Well, I would think as long as it's bigger, a little bigger than this, it gives us room to.
Yeah, without our stuff in here, it's definitely bigger.
Oh, yeah.
But it can be done, correct?
Yep.
All right, so we're not talking about reinventing a wheel,
No.
just
No,
moving
I
it
think we're
around.
still looking at the future office space or training room
Okay.
is another large space.
Yeah.
And then if you have a use there. The other thing is you start to get too big of a room, now you start to get into the whole issue of fire code. Because if you have a 2,000 person room up there, then you're gonna have sprinklers.
We also have to look into egress requirements too. If that's a senior center as a place of assembly, we'll probably have to have 2 doors out of it back into the hallway. So we'll have to see how we work that with the corner here.
I think it's still happening. Yeah, I think it doubles.
When you're redesigning this, is there any chance that you can look at potentially putting, either cutting into the future office areas in the top left there, so we don't infringe on the amount of space we have now, and maybe putting a storage room that we can store all the stuff that is used for a senior center and whatnot? Because right now, there's no storage if we cut all that out. So maybe that future office area, if you put 2 walls and a door from the big area there, at least then we have something like the closet here or whatnot, where we can put bingo and all the games and all that stuff in.
Okay, okay.
Just like
Not like-
maybe a 2-door closet
Not
type.
making that whole future office
No.
space storage.
No, just popping into it for maybe a storage closet or something.
And there's also the entrance there might be more advantageous to the seniors instead of coming in to the right and then having to walk all the way to that room.
So you just need handicap accessible entry at both.
Yeah, so we'll need a ramp at this entrance as well. And it would keep it basically used for the senior center and the supervisor.
Capacities in that future office room, approximately,
No. I mean, until it's defined, I don't know what the capacity is.
Right.
well, I meant the square footage.
Oh, yeah, we know the square footage. I don't have it marked there.
And before we run out of time with this meeting, is there any chance that you could just give the board accurate kind of estimation of timeline that you have in your head right now for the project, just so we're all on the same page?
So what we... So timeline, couple items. So we did deliver to the board a pre-demolition package that could be put out to bid. One of the questions that the board asked at a previous meeting was, well, isn't it cheaper to just wait? So what we're asking the contractor to do that's giving us a price is to give us a price or a construction cost estimate for what it would be to include that in the construction package. And in the meantime, if the board so desires, we could go ahead and still put it out to bid, get quotes from local contractors to do a partial demolition and compare the two. So that's one item that could be done fairly quickly. So that could be put out to bid in the next month or so. Beyond that, we looked at probably another couple of weeks, we should have pricing from the contractor and be able to come back to the board probably the first meeting of next month to basically, wait a second. Yeah, we'd be talking, we might be able to come back to the meeting in the second meeting of this month. No, wait, what month is it? It's still February. The second meeting of March. I'm sorry, I'm off on my months. Feels like
February
March.
is a very long month.
Yes. So we could come back at, hopefully the next meeting, we'll follow up with the contractor, see where he is on the pricing, on the construction cost estimate, and then come back with that information for the board. And then also, so then we were looking at, to put this together for design, Jonathan, we're probably looking at midsummer. We would have full design for putting it out to bid mid to late summer, and then either have the bids come in this year or have the bids go out a little later in the year to have construction start the first part of 2024. So that's, have it to where you could potentially award it in 2023 for either a partial construction starting this year with the remaining in next year, or start construction in 2024. So, but you would already have contracts in place by the end of this year.
And our grant will still hold together for all of that.
Correct. That's pretty much the schedule that I've given to them, is that we would have bid documents ready to go by the end of this year or mid this year, construction through next year into 2025. Because we did get extension, well, I don't know if they've actually sent the paperwork for that, but that's in process. I've been in communication with the Climate Smart people, and they've, it's just a process.
Can you put the first floor up? I still have an issue with this one. And I'm going back to the trees. Okay?
But it was raining.
I'm up here, stuck. Okay, I'm completely stuck in this room. You have a mechanical room behind, you have a closet. Somebody comes in, God forbid, gets past the guys, whatever. You have all these council people and everything here. There is nowhere to get out.
It's also a long hike to the bathroom.
Yeah, is there any way to put an access door through the closet?
Yep.
Mentioned that last time.
Well, you could actually just put a small hallway there with a door.
We could put access right
And
here.
I know it would take away from the closet or wall space or whatever they want to put in there, but I just think that there has to be another way out.
Okay.
Sure,
That's
we
easy.
could do that.
Because you also have the exit out the side of the building, even though you're right, it's towards the front, but you could put that exit towards the left as well, or to my left, your right. Right.
This is, if this one here, see, I don't, this seems really large. Of course, I don't know what you would do with it if you cut it down, but it just seems like a very, very large area.
I believe that was for a lot of court records originally as well there. I mean,
Right, we do have the record.
A lot of it's for that there.
Okay.
Yeah,
So we're kind of separating all of our storage of records and stuff. So some will be upstairs, some will be downstairs, where they belong. You know, not so much, all in one spot as now.
Right. Because that could be a row of filing cabinets there along that wall, because I don't, and if it needs to be in a secure room, then it could be in a separate
Right.
room there.
Any further questions from anyone on the board?
I just want to say this is great, and thank you, Greg, for explaining everything.
Good work.
Thank you.
Thank
Jonathan,
both of
good
you.
work, excellent.
Thank you.
I'll make a motion that we adjourn the special meeting.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We'll take a 10-minute break.